Yeah, so we're at the top of the hour, and so we can jump in and get the webinar started. We've got a great crowd from around the world today to hear from Chris and Peter, so without further ado, we can jump in. My name is Julian Mills. I'm Vice President of Product Marketing at Extranet User Manager, and it's a real pleasure to introduce the topic and the speakers today. Just first up, quick reminder on Teams etiquette. I'm assuming everybody on here, this may not even be their first Teams meeting of the day, but just as a reminder, chat will be open throughout the webinar. We really do want this to be interactive, so we would look forward to some questions or comments, but please ask them through chat at first, and we'll be able to call those out. And we would ask that you stay on mute. If you'd like to join the conversation, please ask on chat or wait for an invitation. And overall, welcome once again. Please enjoy the webinar, and I know you're going to learn a ton. I won't read the agenda in detail, but you're obviously here to learn about why Microsoft 365 does a lot of things really well, including being a great platform for learning portals. And then Chris and Peter have done a nice job of preparing a very interactive presentation for you today. So there's a good blend of slides that have got some great information on it, but we're also going to be able to jump in and show you some live demos of the integrations between it, some of which are going to be newly released today. And at the end, there'll be some good time left for summary and Q&A. So now I can start to hand things over to Peter. I know I always enjoy listening to Peter present. He's been doing this for 20 years. He's a Microsoft MVP, and he has got some really good ideas about how to make the very exciting Microsoft technology simple. And he also played an integral role in building the relationship with LMS 365. So I know he and Chris are going to be able to share the OG story of how that all came about. So without further ado, Peter, I'll hand things over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Julian. Yeah, so I want to start. This is a new tagline that we've brought out at Extranet User Manager, and it sounds like a bit of an oxymoron when you think about it, because nobody thinks of Microsoft as simple. It's this massive, complex suite of products. But really, our goal as a product company is to build a really exceptional user experience that makes it simple to work with Microsoft. Not everything Microsoft. We're very focused on that external scenario to say, hey, you as an organization, pretty much every organization is not an island. They deal with outside, whether it's contractors, partners, vendors, customers, volunteers. There's lots of scenarios that you need to collaborate securely with. And one of those collaborations obviously is helping to train those people that are outside of your organization. So that's the use case that we're going to focus on here this afternoon, this evening. And the goal is that, yes, IT needs to be involved. We want to leverage what investments IT's made in Microsoft 365, but at the end of the day, we want the business to be enabled to be able to do what they need to do. So it's not about having IT be a gatekeeper. It's that they sign off, they understand that security and proper governance is in place, and then the business can get their job done. So Chris, I'll hand it over to you to do an intro on your side.
Oh yeah, thank you, Peter. So my name is Christopher Rousset. I am based out of Las Vegas, transplanted from Europe, grew up in France. Currently hold the role of the general manager for the Americas over at LMS 365, and been working for over 10 years now with LMS 365. Back in the day, we started building learning management systems within SharePoint. It's called SharePoint LMS. And the idea was always to put the learning systems where the user lives, right? The collaboration systems, and that's transformed today into LMS 365 and Microsoft 365, focused on SharePoint, Teams, and all that good stuff. Background, sorry, just a little bit before I get into that one, just a little bit of background. So no, you're good. So just a little bit of background. I have been working with the Microsoft technology for a little over 10 years, with obviously a focus on content and knowledge management, and now focusing more on growing the business here in North America. So really, right, why build a learning portal in Microsoft 365, right? There's lots of different LMSs out there, lots of different learning solutions. What really makes it a compelling argument to go and place your learning environment within your Microsoft 365 environment? Really, the main one is, as I mentioned before, it's always putting the user first. Where's the user living? Where's the user collaborating? Where are they creating knowledge, etc.? And the idea is to put the learning where they live, right? So that's the first item. The second reason is, if a company is already invested within the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, you might as well leverage that. It's technology that you already understand: Azure AD, SharePoint, Teams, Viva, Power Platform. it's all components that the IT already knows, and that the end users, right, where they collaborate, they already know those collaboration systems as well. Another compelling reason, right, is within Microsoft 365, it's like you said, Peter, right? There's lots of different business applications, right? So it can become relatively complex. But putting the learning application within Microsoft 365 also allows organizations to extend the features and functionalities that are provided by LMS by leveraging those third-party applications, right? So, for example, there's more advanced reporting that's needed. Power BI is there. If you want some custom workflows, Power Automate is there, etc. So, really, the idea is to integrate way that you're working with how people are learning and bridge those together.
Cool. Thanks, Chris.
So what is the and why is that, right? What is the key value proposition really of LMS 365 is that learners can access learning opportunities through their favorite tools. We basically solve a really core problem that we hear from a lot of people in L&D and training, etc., which is basically, I have all these awesome learning programs, but nobody's using them. And then when we ask, well, where are you publishing them? In my HRS system or in my procurement system or whatever it might be? Yeah, there's a reason for that, right? So really the core value proposition that we provide is that no matter what the style or where your users live, whether it's in SharePoint and they like that rich browser-based learning experience, we can deliver it through SharePoint. If you like more of that collaborative, social, peer-to-peer type of learning, Microsoft Teams. For those users that just like to learn on the go, mobile device, we have our mobile application for iOS and Android. And then finally, for learning the flow of work and surfacing all the learning opportunities for those organizations that are leveraging the SP of Viva Learning, they can also consume LMS 365 through there. So the next question is really why Extranet User Manager with LMS 365? The core of our users that are using LMS 365 are internal users, right? Licensed users within Microsoft 365. But we also see a huge demand in terms of training the extended enterprise, right? And the extended enterprise, we'll go in that in a little bit. But why extend your learning to external audience? It's also there to leverage all the investments that you made within your Microsoft 365 environment, with centralizing your collaboration training needs instead of using various systems, right, that you need to manage. And here where we understand what the extended enterprise is really to be able to train beyond your staff, right? So those are your partners, your customers. We see a big demand as well in the public sector where it's great, right? We see public institutions that want to train their constituents, their voters, and offer them learning opportunities. In the association world, volunteers, members, all that good stuff. Those are all typically external users where you would want to go and offer learning opportunities to increase, the value that you're delivering to your customers. And the last one there, and that's really important as well, once you have the external user and the external learning portals enabled, it can also be a revenue generating activity, right? By adding e-commerce pricing and making it transactable where people can actually purchase learning and training. And that's delivered by LMS 365 as well. So how did we come together, right? I mean, I think that this is where really we come together, Peter, right? We were on a common customer just by, I think, a little bit by luck, right? Serendipity. And really the commonality is that our target audience is anybody that's using Microsoft 365 and really want to get their full benefit of their investment. Us from a learning perspective, and like Peter said as well, by integrating, the extended enterprise and being able to manage those external users. So we came together. I think it was just very organically by opportunity, and it's been a good adventure so far.
It has. I mean, I wasn't actually on that original call. It was the prospect who had found each of us independently and put us together as a three-way call. And I think, Chris, you were the one that sort of said, "Hey, there's something here beyond this opportunity. Let's chat more." And that was a little over 2 years ago, and things moved pretty quickly from there. I mean, we had some discussions sort of this time through the summer. 2 years back, we actually decided to blow our product up, and at that point, we weren't exclusively focused on Microsoft 365 the way LMS 365 was. And we did a big architectural change in our product and said, hey, we've been knowing this for a while, but this is kind of the push for us to make that change and go all in on the Microsoft 365 stack. So it was a good push, thank you, and a heck of a ride from sort of there till the end of that calendar year 2021, and then started going out to joint clients together from there. And yes,
I think what convinced me was it was Logan that was on the call. Anybody that's called Logan Guest that manages guest users, I'm like, that's perfect.
It's very confusing, his last name, yeah, but it is kind of fun to play with. Yeah, so I mean, we decided collectively to strategically form a partnership to say, hey, let's bring our two products together. And at that point in time, it was really, two separate products that had a common use case and could work well together. I mean, we were both built on Microsoft 365. We both leveraged Azure Active Directory under the hood from that point of view. In fact, LMS 365 had, I guess you could call it a competing product at that point, the external 365 in the world that you guys had built sort of as a band-aid to say, hey, when we have to train external people, we need something, so let's build it. And then as soon as you saw our stuff, you pretty much threw yours out and said, okay, let's jump on this one and go from there, because it wasn't core to your business. Your business is about learning, our business is about external. So it was a really nice fit from that point of view. I mean, you provide the LMS, the course and content management, the onboarding and collaboration with those external users is kind of a common thing. And then we layer in the self-registration, the profile, and really that delegation model that lets the learning and development people, not the IT, be the owners of this. We don't want them to have to go to IT to say, hey, I've got 20 more people I need you to add to our tenant and invite to our course. That's just not a workable solution. And then ultimately adding that e-commerce piece in there as well to say, hey, can we monetize this? Is there a revenue stream on our training that we can offer to external parties? So it worked out really well from that point of view. So then fast forward to I guess about 3 months ago, Thomas on your team and I had been having conversations about, how do we build deeper integrations between the two products? They fit and worked well together, but they weren't, tightly connected with each other. And we were down in Vegas, your hometown, currently for the M365 conference. We brought our team down, had some great offsites for a couple of days, and really thought about and planned out what those deeper integrations could be. We'd already kind of, proof of concept those out before we came down, but over the months since, that was sort of beginning of May, we've actually polished. And as Julian mentioned, we're ready to take the wraps off, and that's really what this webinar is about here, is to talk about those points of integration between them. So folks on the call may know more about Extranet User Manager and less about LMS 365, or it could be the other way around. Just to give it a little bit background on Extranet User Manager. I mean, we're focused around, as the name implies, managing those external users. And a fundamental part of that is creating groups, which under the hood are Active Directory groups in your tenant's Azure AD that can represent lots of different things. And in the LMS integration scenario, what makes a lot of sense for them to represent is actually courses and training plans that you want to enroll people into. So the idea is, let's create a group through our product. Let's allow the learning and development person to be able to create that group, associate it with assets in LMS 365, and then just start inviting people in. And IT can be happy with that, knowing that, hey, there's proper governance and structure, and they're not messing around with permissions and things under the hood. They're just, creating a group and putting people into it, and that group is tied to that course, that training plan, that course catalog in LMS 365. One of our use cases that we're going to talk about in the demo section is National Health Service in the UK, and in their case, they have 35,000 people that they want to bring in and onboard and train as part of this initiative. Obviously, trying to invite individuals at that level doesn't make sense. We had self-registration requirements and everything else, and they were actually one of the early adopters to an early version of this. And we quickly realized that the way we built that integration, that you had to go over into LMS 365 and get these big long GUIDs of letters and numbers and type them properly into our system and get this all to fit without blowing it up. And unfortunately, we had to help them unblow it up a few times through that process. And that sort of was the aha to us that, if our mandate is to make Microsoft simple, we weren't achieving it in that idea there. So what we built here is a tight integration between the two products to say, on the left here, when I'm adding a group in our product, let me choose a course or a training plan or an asset over in LMS 365 and make it smart that it understands what courses me as a learning development person have access to publish that I can make that group represent. So that's really what that's all about. And it's based off of our application called Admin. It's the administrative back end to it to create the groups and invite the people in, but it's not an IT tool. It's intended for something that the business people themselves can use as part of this, that they can create a group, they can associate it to something in LMS 365, and then they can just start inviting people in. So I'm going to take us through a couple of demos now and actually take you through that process. So the first scenario that I'm going to take you through is actually creating that group. So I'm over here in our portal. So this, I won't touch on this too much right now, but part of it is an actual learner portal that people can come to and self-discover courses. We'll get to that when we get later on through it. But I've signed in as somebody who has admin rights, and I can come over into Admin, launch into the full admin portal and say, hey, I'd like to create a new group for a course that I have. So this is all sort of out of the box prior to customizations, and what we've added in here is we've got templates for a number of different types of groups. One of which is to add a group representing something in LMS 365. So when I click on that, what it's doing now is it's actually calling out, because LMS publishes APIs that we can call as a developer and retrieve information about courses and course catalogs and such. And that information that we get back is actually trimmed to the context of the person that's signed in right now. So if I was a learning development person, maybe there was 3 or 4 course catalogs in LMS 365, but I only had access to one of them, I would only see the one in through here. So my first decision is, what do I want to create a group for? Is it an individual course? Do I have a full training plan that can be sort of a series of courses that I expect my external partner to go through? Or do I want to expose an entire course catalog and let them just sort of cherry pick courses through there? The common scenario we think is that they just want to pick a course. So first thing, I have to choose which of the course catalogs in LMS that I have access to that I want to do that with. So I'm going to use the external LMS course catalog, and then I'm going to come in here and we're going to use a trauma-informed care for veterans course in here. And I need to give a name for this. I'm going to give it a very creative one, 1B. I've already done a dry run, so I've got a 1 through there, and I'm going to go ahead and save that group. So under the hood, what this is doing is it's creating what's called a security group in Azure Active Directory that all these users can belong to, and it's also calling out to LMS to register this group with that course so that people get added to the group automatically get added to the course as well as part of that. So let's actually just go ahead and pull that group back up that I created. So that was my webinar demo 1B that I've got here. So it created sort of the shell of the course, and you can see here that it's provided those points of integration that I've associated with a course called Trauma-Informed Care for Veterans, and that this is the link over to the admin side of the course. So I can actually click on that, and I can bring up the LMS 365 admin console. And I should have shown you this when I was adding the group, because I can actually do it before I add the group to make sure that I'm actually adding the right course. And I can come in here and see all the details in LMS 365 about that course. So we can see that deep level integration between the two products through there. You know, I can X out of this and look through all the various different courses because I'm an administrator in LMS 365 right now, but that particular one is that course tied to this group. And right now, if I look at the group, it's brand new, so there's nobody in this group. I need to invite people into that through there. Now, there's a couple of nuances that we can play with here, and we'll see these as we get into later scenarios. Our first scenario that we're going to talk about is an invitation only. So the idea is the person that is managing that course knows the people that they want to invite in as trainers, and they're just going to invite them in. We could create what's called a private registration where I can give people a link and they can use that to register. That'll be our second scenario, or a public one which people can self-discover and register themselves. We'll actually use that for our third scenario from an e-commerce point of view. I can set up a welcome email that comes out from here to welcome people to that group. I've actually turned it off right now because there's also a welcome email functionality in LMS 365, and we've decided let's use the LMS 365 email. You could turn one or the other off. It doesn't make sense to have two competing emails going out to users. It's confusing from that point of view. So let's flip back here. So we've got our demo, and let's talk a little deeper onto that first scenario and the invitation process. So I've created the group, everything's ready. It's connected up with the course in LMS 365, and now it's up to the learning admin to say, hey, I want to start inviting people in through there. So they go into that same admin interface that I was showing you a second ago and just start inviting people. They may be existing people that are already in the tenant. Maybe they've taken some other courses and now I'm inviting them to this one. Or they're net new people that I'm just going to fill in their profile information, and they'll get sent the email from LMS 365 saying, hey, you're now registered in the course, and you start going from there. So the learner will get that email. They click on the link in the email, they get redirected over to Microsoft because everything is Microsoft authentication and security under the hood here. Once they get through that, then they're actually into the course and they can start taking their learning in LMS 365. So the scenario we're going to use for this is actually Warrior Centric Health. And we actually have Lisa from Warrior Centric Health on the call here. So Lisa, maybe if you want to just do a quick intro on your side, tell me a bit about yourself and Warrior, and then we can go into your particular scenario.
Yes, my name's Lisa Reynoldson. I am the Director of Client Engagement for Warrior Centric Health. I'm our de facto IT person with not a lot of technical abilities as well. And Warrior Centric Health provides learning through LMS 365 that is facing to purely external users. None of our users are internal to our company. All of our clients are hospital systems. Doctors, nurses are the ones that are taking our courses. We also work on the DoD end with a .gov end of it as well. So we're both in commercial and government space using LMS 365 and the EUM tool.
And Lisa, would it be fair to say that, I mean, your reason for being is to provide training and education to these healthcare providers? I mean, that is your business. So this is really fundamental to your business.
It is. It's one of our core focuses is training health systems to better meet the needs of veterans in the public sector. And so it's a critical mission, having a learning system and an easy way to get people into it were an absolute priority for us. We do deal with data and things like that is provided to those organizations in relation to veterans. But at the end of the day, it's all about the training they get that teaches them how to identify veterans' very unique needs and healthcare situations. And having a good learning system that can facilitate that was an imperative.
Cool. Thanks, Lisa. So let's actually go through your scenario. Now I got hands on the keyboard, so I'm going to be Lisa for a moment here and say, hey, I want to invite an external learner into a course here. And we're actually going to use that course that we just set up in the previous step there. So let me flip back over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a brand new user. So imagine this is somebody in the healthcare field that we haven't worked with before. We've identified them and we want to set them up for learning through here. So again, I'm going to be very creative with names here. I'm going to do a Peter demo 30, we'll call it. I've done a lot of dry runs lately through here.
He's a very good doctor, I hear.
Yeah. And we use a service called Mailinator. It's just a quick way to create sort of email boxes on the fly through here. And what I'm going to do is, as I'm adding this user in here, I'm actually going to associate them with that webinar demo 1B group that we just created in the previous step here. So what's going to happen here when I hit save is it's going to create this person in Warrior Centric's. It's actually our demo tenant, but in your scenario, in your tenant. And it's also going to call it to LMS 365 to say, hey, register this learner in the course that we associated with that group. So Lisa doesn't have to do that. You just have to come in here and say, hey, let's bang in the people that we want to do through here. And in fact, if you had 100 people you wanted to onboard through there, you could import them in. There's an Excel spreadsheet you can fill in and make that easier at bulk from that point of view as well. But the same process would happen. It would add those 100 users. It would register the 100 people in the course, and 100 emails would go out to those people to say, hey, you're ready to go from there. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to flip into an in private window so I can kind of wear two hats. So now I'm switching hats to the external physician that's been invited in to do the training. So I'm going to start in my inbox, which is the Mailinator test one that we've got here. And I'm going to use that pdemo address that I just used. Now, we did leave the general welcome email on. We turned off the one for the group, but we decided just for demo purposes, let's leave the welcome to UM portal one on there, which is kind of a general, hey, you've got an account in this portal, and you can come into the portal to kind of navigate and access things through there. And right now you're seeing sort of UM demo branding through here, but obviously this email would have a warrior-centric health branding to it as part of that. But the important one I want to come to is this one here that actually came from LMS 365 saying, hey, dear Peter, Demo 30, you're now enrolled in the following training, and I've got a link right into the course for me through there. So I can just click on that link there. And what it's doing is it's taking me into Warrior-Centric Health's SharePoint Online tenant as a guest. So the first thing I have to do is sign in with Microsoft. Now, if I was using my Envision IT browser and my regular day-to-day account, I wouldn't even see this. I would just single sign in through and away I go. But because I'm in a brand new in private window, I've got to start by putting in my email address. And this particular account that we've set up is not a Microsoft 365 account. It doesn't have anything configured from that point of view. So it's using what's called a one-time passcode from Microsoft. It's a really easy way to onboard people that don't use Microsoft 365 themselves. So don't worry if the people you're looking to train aren't using Microsoft 365 themselves. It's absolutely not an issue in terms of bringing them on from there. I just go back to my inbox. I've got an email from Microsoft saying, hey, here's your one-time passcode. I just copy that to my clipboard, bring it back over here and paste it in, and I can sign in. So it's kind of like a password, but I don't have to remember it. I just get a new one each time I need to go in. Now, the first time I go into somebody else's tenant, so I'm coming from my Demo 30 account into the Warrior tenant here, it says, hey, I need some permission here. I need to be able to read your profile data, do some logging and such. They're pretty minor from this point of view, but according to Microsoft rules, you have to be full disclosure and say, hey, this is what we're capturing from you. You need to accept these terms. Now you can have a broader terms of use and your own agreement as part of that. You can customize that whole experience. In fact, all of the branding that we saw through there, oh, damn, I forgot a step that I was supposed to do in there, will allow you to come in fine through there. Sorry, I'm going to do a little on the demo fly because there's a piece of the group setup that I forgot to do on that one that I set up here. So let me just bring up our webinar demo for a second. And I'm going to go to the safety one that I had set up beforehand. There's a SharePoint group I forgot to put in there. We should make that part of the onboarding. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go find that pdemo 30 account that we just created. And this is the process that you would go through if you had an existing person that you wanted to add to a new group that you had through there. So now I've just added it to a second course through there. If I come back to my in private window, let's go back to my inbox. I may need to give it a second there, but I should get another enrollment confirmation coming through. Actually, I might be able to cheat because they're both pointing to the same group. We'll see what happens. Yes, I'm good. The demo gods are shining on me here. So now I'm in LMS 365 as a learner. So you can see up in the browser bar, I'm on SharePoint.com. That would be the Warrior-centric Microsoft 365 tenant if it was in their environment there, and I can see that I'm already enrolled in the course. This is kind of a dummy course. We haven't set up any content in here per se. We weren't going to go deeper into the demo of the LMS itself. It was more about how do we onboard somebody into the course. So that's sort of scenario one, where you know the people that you want to bring into your training, and you just want to invite them in either one at a time, like I was showing you there, or through a bulk Excel import. But let's switch over here now. Thanks, Lisa, and talk about the self-registration scenario. So I mentioned National Health Service, and that's the case reference we're going to use for the next demo here, which is we've got literally tens of thousands of external learners that we want to bring in. Inviting them in one at a time or even doing an Excel import is a pretty onerous task for that. So you can either have a private link that you provide that people can kind of pass around to register for the course, or you could actually put it up on your public website. Say, hey, here's a link to our training portal. You can self-discover the course and register through there. So basically, they would come to a registration form that says, hey, I need some profile information from you, more than just your email address, maybe your full name, which organization you belong to, things like that we want to capture as part of that onboarding. But it's effectively the same thing. We're going to create an account in Azure Active Directory with all that profile information that we've just captured. We're still going to call LMS and put that learner into the appropriate course. They're still going to get redirected to Microsoft. And into the course they go. But it's very much a self-service. Now, you may be asking, well, do we want everybody in the world to take our training? How do we manage that? And there's a lot of gates and levers that we can put in place from here. We can turn on approvals to say each time somebody registers, the learning person within your organization gets a notification to say, hey, do you approve this person or not? That often doesn't scale well either. Often what we do is trigger it off of email domain. Hey, we've got, like in NHS's case, there was 12 healthcare organizations that were taking the training. And for the most part, the learners came from one of those 12 email domains. So we could actually use that as a pre-qualification. We have a feature in our product that says, hey, auto approve based on these email domains. In the NHS case, we actually wanted to go further than that and say, hey, depending on which healthcare organization they were going to come from, we actually have a different training plan for each of those organizations. So it wasn't that they were all going into one group, they were actually getting assigned to different groups based on those rules. Or it could be based off of things that they self-identify, things that they answer off of the fields through there. So just to kind of come back to the case study itself. So this is not the entire National Health Service. This is NHS Informatics Mayorside, which is one region within the UK, but still, like I said, 30,000+ healthcare professionals that need to go through this training. So the self-registration was super important to that. The user experience and the frictionless onboarding were also a really key thing. When you're onboarding literally thousands of people a day, even if 1% of those people have problems going through that onboarding experience, that can be tens or hundreds of support cases that you need to deal with. So it's really important that you get that flow and that process right and make sure it's solid and works well from that point of view. So let's go into our third demo scenario here. And before I jump into it from the external self-registration side, let's actually come back to our groups here. And I'm going to show you a little behind the scenes of what's set up in here. So webinar demo 2 is the one that we're going to use for this scenario here. So we've got all the details about the group. We've actually loaded up the Cheshire and Mayorside logo as part of that. From a branding point of view, we've got it tied into a particular course here around healthcare quality improvement and patient safety. And we've used 2 healthcare examples. Don't assume that we just do training scenarios with healthcare. Lots of different industries. Just these 2 fit really well from the webinar point of view. But the important piece here, I talked about the different registration types. This particular one I've set up as a private registration, not an invitation only. And what that means is it's not publicly discoverable. People can't just, off the street find it. They need this URL here. And you can see by the latter part of it, it's not a pretty or friendly URL. And that's actually done on purpose because we want people to legitimately be provided that. Was it sent out as part of a mass email? How is it distributed to those 12 healthcare organizations? Basically, the learning development person can copy that link and then choose how they want to communicate that out. And they can explain to people that, hey, this link is shareable. Like I'm giving it to a few key people within each organization, and they can distribute it further out. Sort of the, I told two friends, they told two friends story. It can organically grow from there, and that's okay. For demo purposes, this one here, you'll notice I've left the approvals turned off. I could turn those on to say, hey, we need each one to be approved through there. Or I could do what's called member automation here, and I could list a number of email domains to say, hey, if people come from one of these 12 email domains, just auto approve and let them go from there. So with just a little bit of configuration, I can get it very tailored from a security point of view and a governance point of view to how I want people to come in. But I'm going to leave it in the open state from now. So I'm going to grab that link there. And what I'm going to do is I'm first going to close out of this in private and start a new one because I want to start sort of a brand new scenario through here. So imagine I'm a person working at one of those 12 healthcare organizations in Cheshire Merseyside, and I've been provided this link. So I click that link, and in my browser, I come through and I get to, we call this the join page. So it kind of explains, before you do anything, this is what you're about to join, make sure you actually want to come in here and this is the right thing for you. So as a learning development person, I have control over this. I can edit the content on here. In fact, if I come back to here, I kind of skipped over it, but the content is right in here. So we've got a nice, rich WYSIWYG editor that I can edit my content. I can include images in through there of what I want to explain to people when they come to join that group. Now, I'm not currently logged in at all. I could log in first and then join the group, or I could join and go through the login process. I'm going to take the latter flow through here. So I click on join group and it says, hey, first, before you can join it, I need to know who you are. So let's get your information through here. So I'm going to keep going through the numbers here, and I create another new account in here. Oh, and I messed one thing up. I was supposed to set up the branding a little bit different here, so bear with me again. So we have the ability in our product, obviously, brand it, have it on your host name, your URL that you want for that. We can actually do that very easily in our demo environment. So I've kind of changed the branding to the Cheshire Merseyside branding through there, and I'm going to go through that same joining of the group. So it's the same pages, just has a different look and feel on it. So let me do that same address because I didn't get into the actual account creation yet. And here you can see we have a different registration form. So the registration is very customizable to the particular nuances of the organization. So this is the actual fields that NHS uses. It's not the NHS system, it's our demo system. So I can put in my name information. I can select from a list of organizations. These are just kind of dummy ones that we have in here. If I choose other, it lights up a box for me to actually type the name of the organization in, but I'll leave it as EUM. And I can pick a department and put my top title in. So when I go ahead and register, all that profile information is being recorded in Azure Active Directory for that user. They're also being set up in LMS 365 so that they have access to that course. Now this process does take a little while here because what's happening right now is we're calling out to Microsoft to register that account. We're calling out to LMS 365 to set the learner up. And there's a bunch of moving pieces in the background, particularly on the Microsoft side, that kind of need to let the dust settle and let that happen. So we've got a pause here, typically about 60 seconds or so through this process to allow that account to be fully set up, and then the learner can continue into the process. We actually worked a lot with this onboarding, specifically with NHS and getting that flow right, because when we first built it, we were just taking them immediately into the course, but Microsoft hadn't caught up yet. Things weren't quite working properly. We did a bunch of research around what needed to happen where to get that working properly, because the goal with NHS is when somebody registers for one of these courses, they're in the mindset they want to take the course. So just take me right into the course. Don't wait an hour and send me an email and now I've moved on to something else and we've lost that training opportunity through there. So we've got the same send a code because I'm still using a Mailinator account. I'm going to open up that inbox and I'll use that one there. And we've got our welcome email that came. Now you'll notice I don't have a welcome email from LMS just yet because I actually haven't fully joined the learning just yet. So I need to come in here, finish my sign on, enter my code in, because we want to make sure that they're actually a valid person, that they can successfully sign in before we actually wire them up with LMS 365. So I've got the same consent from Microsoft that I have to go through. Now we're joining into the group. So now we're calling it to LMS 365 saying, hey, register this PWM 30 person in that group. That's been successfully done. Now I can access that group. So I can click on this link here. And I'm back into the LMS with that course that join was associated with, and start to take my training. So you can see there in sort of 3 to 5 minutes, typically a user can go through that process. There's no approval required because they check the right boxes from an email domain point of view, and I'm in my course. I can start doing my training, and away go from there. So it's a really efficient way to onboard large numbers of users. And we've got quite a few clients with tens of thousands of external learners that need to go through this process. In fact, we just signed a deal with the state of Illinois that's expected to get into the hundreds of thousands of external users. So it's really important that we've optimized that flow and we've got that training path down from that point of view. Okay, so let's come back over. And Julian, I haven't been watching the chat, so if there's questions that make sense to jump in here, please feel free to interrupt.
No questions yet, Peter, but I was going to remind the group that you and Chris are on deck for questions if they come up.
Absolutely, go ahead and chat away. So the last scenario we're going to talk about is very similar to the one that I just took you through, but you actually want to monetize that. You want to say, hey, I'm going to let somebody self-register for the course. I probably don't want an approval because really my approval is get your credit card out and actually pay for that course. And I'm happy to take your money and deliver your training as part of that. So it's a very similar flow, but we're actually going to interject Stripe into that onboarding process. Now this one, I'm going to take a slightly different path through here. So I'm going to assume that I'm a corporate user who uses Microsoft 365 day in, day out. I'm in my Envision IT corporate portal, which is a different tenant than this demo one that I'm using. And I now want to buy some training and take that course is the scenario that I'm going to go through here. And this is actually something that you can do yourselves. This is all live and open. In fact, Irina, if you want to chat this EOM demo link here out to the group as a whole, feel free to multitask and try this out yourself because this is live and public and available for anybody to try. So if I come in here and I say, hey, I want to begin my test ride, we've got a bunch of different use case scenarios in here. One of them that we've focused on is obviously the learning management side of it. In fact, we have one here that Irina's put together, which is a quiz and questionnaire actually on this webinar. We're going to send it to you as a follow-up. Actually take the 9 or 10 question quiz as part of that and experience LMS 365 and our onboarding process as part of that. But I'm going to take us down the e-commerce course path here right now. And don't worry, if you want to try this one yourself, we're not using a real Stripe service. We're using a Stripe test environment. So we literally publish this credit card number here that you can use to try it out yourself. I wouldn't recommend trying to use it on Amazon and do shopping because I'm pretty sure it'll get declined. But for this particular page, it works great from that point of view. So here's an example of a join page again. It's got its own unique content that the learning development person has created to explain what this course is about and what the cost is to it. It actually says $1 there, but I think Stripe is going to ask for 100 fake dollars when I get to my next step here. So I go ahead and hit the join. I have to sign in as I did before. Now remember, I'm in a browser here that's already signed into my corporate identity. So when I hit continue here, it goes to Microsoft, but I don't really see anything. It spins over on the Microsoft side for a little bit there, and then it's going to come back on to my side here. Oh, and I'm already a member of the course, so that's not going to work. Sorry, I messed my demo scenario up here as well. So I do want to show you the e-commerce side of it, if you don't mind bearing with me for a second here. I'm going to flip back over here. I'm going to find that group, which is a learning management group type. You get to see more of the admin as I kind of work through our demo issues here. So there's my e-commerce course. Have a look at my users. There's my Envision IT account. Let's just nuke that person out of there so they're no longer in the course. And I can come over to my browser here. I need to actually start the whole login process again here to recognize that I've been removed from that security group. So we'll just get that started up. I can go ahead and continue in. Single sign-on is wonderful. I don't have to enter my credentials again. And let's go ahead and find that course again. It's the e-commerce that I wanted, so let's go ahead and join that. I should have noticed that it had a view. I guess I wasn't signed in at that moment there. So I'll join that group. So now it knows that I'm not in the group and it's taking me through the join process. It says, hey, next thing I need you to do is go over to stripe.com and do the checkout. You can see that it's in test mode here. So it's a fake, I can just paste in that credit card number that I had there. You can use any month-day combination as long as it's in the future. You can use anything for a CVC, it doesn't really matter. You got to provide something for a name. They've got a nice Google Places integration here, so I can type my office address in there, have that auto-populate, and go ahead and hit pay. That's now doing the call to the payment gateway to validate that credit card. This one's a fake one, so it tends to go through, and no funds are actually changing hands as part of that. So it's got the success back from that, and now it's adding me to the course. You successfully joined the course. I can now access that group. I click on that. And now, again, I'm into LMS 65, and I have access to that course based on the payment that I made. And we've got clients that have nuances to those scenarios. Maybe you want to provide the ability for one-off people to use a credit card, but you've got larger organizations that maybe want to buy 100 seats or 1,000 seats to training. We've customized to provide a sort of a voucher code idea to say, hey, put the code in, then we won't take you to Stripe. We'll just decrement one more count off the prepaid seats that are in there. So there's a fair bit of nuance and flavors that we can build out as part of that. So that's our e-commerce scenario through there. We're close to the end here. I wanted to leave some time at the end for Q&A, but I do want to talk about the login scenarios. We do have a couple different things that we saw through there. So that Mailinator scenario that I was using in the first view there, that's what we call a non-Microsoft 365 account. So that's not associated with any sort of personal account or Microsoft 365 account. It could be a corporate, could be personal, doesn't really matter. It takes you through that one-time passcode flow that we saw. The last scenario that I showed you, I used my actual Microsoft 365 account. That's nice because I don't typically need to log in. I'm going to be in a browser that's already authenticated. I don't even see the sign-on, and I'm just into your training from there. You can turn on federation with both Microsoft and Google personal accounts if that's an audience that you're going to be training. So people can literally use their Gmail to sign in to Microsoft. I know that sounds odd, but Microsoft has built those federations, and that does work. The only caveat there is if the person you're inviting uses an organizational Gmail, but it doesn't have gmail.com, it has their company name in it, it's still considered a non-Microsoft account. And then the last one, we're actually just launching this out. We've actually built SMS-based authentication. So somebody that doesn't even have an email address and needs to access the training, can they use their SMS number? It's very much like the one-time passcode. They put their SMS number in. Microsoft emails the one-time passcode. We receive that, and then we SMS message it to the person that's registered, and that's how they sign in from that point of view. We have a couple clients that use this specifically in the training scenario where they've got, external contractors and tradespeople that need to do, workplace training and things like that. They're not knowledge workers. They're not employees. They don't have Microsoft 365 accounts, and they don't even have an email that they really want to share with the organization. So they can literally come into a conference room with a bunch of training kiosks set up, get their flip phone out, their smartphone, doesn't matter, register with their SMS number on the kiosk computer, in they go, they take their training, and away they go from there. So it's just another opportunity to say, hey, if you have none of the above, here's another easy way to bring people in from that point of view. So I mentioned Irina created the webinar quiz and questionnaire. It's actually live on that portal.eom demo that we sent the link out to. We'll also have the link in the deck here. We're going to be providing the link out, and we'll be providing the webinar for download and the recording of the session as well up on our event page. So we will have a follow-up email that comes out once that's all published up. You can get Chris's contact info, my contact info, all the details, the recording, all my missteps from a demo point of view. It's all there. We won't edit anything out from that point of view. And absolutely, if you'd like to discuss your scenario, reach out. Irina has a spot up on her page on our site. Chris, I'm not sure if you have a Calendly link on your side. I'm assuming there's the same thing on the LMS 365 to book some time and dive deeper and talk about your specific scenarios. So Chris, I've been going nonstop for the last half of the webinar. Thank you for being patient there. Sort of closing thoughts and awesome comments on your side?
No, that was great. Thanks, Peter. I think that's a big use case as well, right? We're lucky about the authentication experience, right? For users that don't have emails, etc. For us, that's really a big game changer, right? Where somebody can go there without their email address and authenticate with their mobile phone. Definitely lots of use cases that can be handled with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we're good to open up to questions if there's any questions from the group around anything, right? Around any components. Next, if you want to learn more about LMS 365, EUM, pricing, anything like that, there's nothing off the table.
Yeah, I won't go through. I don't have a sort of a dummy SMS set up in here. I'm not entirely comfortable sharing my personal mobile on the recording, but basically I've typed in what looks like a phone number. It's recognized both that 416 is a Canadian area code and I'm geolocated in North America. Therefore, it flipped me to that country code through there. I can override that and put something different in from that point of view. And basically, as I go through that registration flow, it's very much like the email flow that we took you through, except that I'm going to get an SMS one-time passcode rather than an email one-time passcode. Julian, any chat questions or anything we want to touch base on that side?
No questions have come through on the chat as of yet.
No worries. So we will give 8 minutes back to people's time. I'm sure there's always a way to make good use of that. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. It was fun to present. And Chris and Lisa, thank you for joining in and co-presenting with us here. It was awesome to have you.
Thanks for inviting me.
Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for organizing, Peter. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.